So let's start with a story. In 2004, I got my real estate license, and I had no money. Like today, nothing. I had no money, and because I had no money, I had to do things that took no money. So that was problem number one. Problem number two, my family was broke. I'm not super social, right? And I didn't have that box that Brian Buffini ships out with the stickers. So I couldn't really work my database or my sphere. I didn't have one, right? My friends were young and buying dirt bikes instead of houses, right? My family was in jail or intoxicated, and it just wasn't the database that you could work. So I had to do things a little bit differently. And I went out with a mission, and my mission was to replace my income as a cable guy. And that first year, we were able to get 25 closed transactions, and that was my goal, because I knew if I got 25, I could afford an assistant. And I knew if I could afford an assistant, I could do what I was good at. And dealing with transactions and doing marketing and entering stuff in the MLS and green sheets, I'm not good at that. That slows me down, right? But with an assistant, I was able to focus and grow. The next year we went 84 transactions, the next year 143, and it continued to grow because I got the ability to do what I was good at. So where did we get that business? I mean, I was so broke and I didn't know anybody that I didn't even have open houses to host. So what I'd do is I'd wait till a brand new home came on the market and it was vacant, and I'd just go park in front of it and wait for buyers to drive by. And then I drive by, I get out, I'm like, oh, I was just going to go preview this. Do you want to come in with me? And then I would take them in there. I'd show them the house, right? And then I'd go back and say, oh, I'm taking off too. See you later. And I'd sit back in my car and wait for another buyer to come. Well, the next thing I had to do is I listened to a couple of videos from Gary, and I read Gary's book before I joined. He said it was the 3 L's, which are what? Leads, listings, and leverage. But he didn't mean that. That's what he always says, but he doesn't mean that. What he really means is you go get listings, because listings generate what? Leads, right? And if you have more leads than you can handle, you get to do what? You get to higher leverage. Isn't that something? So when that clicked in my head, I knew that I had to be good at finding listings and also taking listings. That started with canceled expireds, for sale by owners, just door knocking. I'd door knock on, back then we called them notice of defaults. That was before they actually entered the foreclosure legal proceedings, but they've been notified that they're at least 30 days late on their mortgage. And I'd just go knock on them, ask them if they wanted to sell. Well, that led into our business, and by 2018, I think I went on 240 listing appointments, and I listed 217. What that caused me to do is that caused me to become good at one listing presentation. What happens with real estate agents is a lot of time they'll go out and they wing it. And the problem with winging it is once you start succeeding through other people, that's not scalable. Because then your other people start winging it too, and you got 10 different listing presentations going around. So I wanted to come up with a way that every time we did a listing presentation, it'd be done exactly the same way, whether they're in Toronto or Missouri or Atlanta, it didn't matter. It's always the same thing. So what you'll see today as we go through some of these things, you'll see that it's a scalable model, and that's what I want you guys to take away. Whether you do my exact presentation or you come up with one your own that could really scale and be done by other people.
The way we're able to scale this thing is, when a new person joins the team, and it doesn't matter what location they're in, we've got Ben's listing presentation recorded. And so in order to take listings on the team, you have to become listing certified. And what that means is you have to memorize that presentation word for word, right? And when you go out to the house, you're not doing it word for word because it will take different directions, but you have to know it word for word. And then you have to get approved by the rest of the team. The people that have already become listing certified, you give that presentation to them, and they all vote on if you make it or not, right? Because that person now is in a position to go out and represent our brand with our sellers. We need to make sure that everybody else is bought in, that they have the ability to do that.
And it was a big lesson because as you get busier and busier, time matters. right? And you run out of time. And I found myself, I'd sit down with an agent, and I'd teach him the listing presentation, then he'd forget, so I'd teach it again, and then he'd forget, and I'd teach it to him again. Right? Then I hired a new agent, I'd do the same exact thing, right? And pretty soon I'm just punching myself in the closet, right? Because I'm frustrated. So then we just got the camera out, and we just made a decision. Now every single time that I teach, share, or do anything, there's a camera. By the way, turn around, everybody. There's a camera. That's Dave. He runs the camera. So anytime we do anything, we record it. We take the audio. We make videos. We use it to train all of our people. Kind of an interesting lesson, right? So we're going to jump in. Today's meant to be a little interactive. So I want you guys to think of your listing objections or your questions related to listings, and we'll do the best we can to handle it. So we're going to talk about how do you do a really powerful listing presentation. And here's what you do. Once you get the appointment, you walk in the door. You walk in the door. You shake their hand. Thanks for having me over here today, Bob.
Appreciate you stopping by.
Is there anything other than price that you would like to discuss before we get started on the paperwork?
No.
Let's get started with the paperwork. Thank you.
That's it. 500 homes a year with that one.
Is there anything other than price that you would like to discuss before we get started on the paperwork? Real estate agents do listing presentations for people all the time that don't want to hear it. It's like putting them through some weird form of torture, right? So don't do it. Just ask them right away, right away. Is there anything other than price that you would like to discuss before we get started on the paperwork? And then hand them a pen, and then have them sign the paperwork, and then figure out the price. That makes sense? Now, I'm being a little facetious, but it actually works quite a bit. And I think there's two types of listing presentations out there. There's the consultative, and especially when they already know you, your sphere, so on. They don't need to see our pictures, our awards, what we look like Photoshop. They don't need any of that stuff, right? They already trust you. They're already going to list with you. You just ask them what they would like to focus on, and then you go through it. Now, the other one is what I'm used to, and that's a competitive listing presentation. And most of my presentations were competitive because I focused on what type of business? Canceled expireds. Now, is canceled expireds a timely conversation? In November, we had more canceled expireds in most of our markets than we had for the last 4 or 5 months. January 1, probably more than we had in the last year or two. So it's timely, right? I think a good canceled expired agent doesn't have to spend any money on marketing. Their marketing is other real estate agents that don't price properties effectively. We call them recon. Like in the Army, they're the people you send out first. They go find them, don't sell them, we get them, and then we sell them. And I get agents all the time that said, I wish you'd stop calling my expireds. And I said, I wish you'd stop letting them expire. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? So let's go through what this presentation could look like. So we're going to pretend for a few minutes that Bob's our seller today. And we're just going to talk through the conversation of what a good listing presentation could feel like. Now, it's designed pretty. This is with designers. It's in a printed flip book. We can do it in slides if you want. But I've done it so many times, I can also do it on a flip chart with a Sharpie or a single piece of paper and a Sharpie. And that's what it's meant to be. Your presentations should be easy to remember and sequential. The way you make it like that is you divide it up into small chunks, right? There are 5 things. So all you got to do is remember the 5 things, right? There are 3 things in this bucket. All you got to do is remember that. Here's the pie chart. How many pieces of pie are there? 6. You just remember that, right? And what we try to do when we learn the listing presentation is we're trying to learn the script for each page. We master and memorize a page at a time. Nobody memorizes a book, right? We memorize 1 page. Okay. So Bob, I really appreciate you sitting down with me today and talking about getting your property sold. By this time, I'd already asked him qualifying questions. We have a seller lead sheet that helps us figure out things like intent, where are they going, how long have they been there, what did they pay for the home. If I didn't get that, the first thing that I'm going to do is say, Bob, would you mind showing me around the house? Now, I've been in a lot of houses in my life, so I know exactly what the house looks like, and I don't really care what their bedroom's like. Or I want that opportunity to build rapport with Bob as I walk around. And as we're walking around the house, I'm looking around, and I'm looking for something that I can connect with Bob with, right? And we're taught the Ford method at Keller Williams: family, occupation, recreation, dreams, right? So I'm looking for something to see, where does this guy work? What kind of books does he read, right? What are the hobby things that he has, right? I'm looking for some way to build up a conversation, because people do business with you when they like and trust you. They like and trust you. And one of the number one ways to get somebody to like you is to find commonality. Find commonality. So Bob, we walk around this house, I'm asking him questions. I'll do that often with a husband and a wife. And I'll say, would one of you mind walking me around the house? And I do that intentionally, because when you separate them, you get a little bit different conversation. So it's always been a strategic thing that we do. So we're sitting back down at the table. I'm very specific where I sit at the table if we're there. I will not go face to face with the person if possible. I will tend to go at a corner and look sideways. I believe it's less confrontational. I read a lot of books about body language and those sort of things, and I think it takes away that. I'll never sit with somebody where I'm behind a desk and they're in the other chair. I would pull my chair on the side, or I would go to a different table. I'm very specific about the environment that I do this in. If there's a husband and wife, I'm very careful that no matter where I sit, I can see both of them in my same view. And I've made that mistake before, where I was looking at one more than the other, and at the end, one person didn't like me. But it was because the seat they put me in, right? So then over time, I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me. And I'll just say, would it be okay if we rearrange things a little bit and I sat here?
This is interesting, because in Ben's office, there's two places you can sit, and kind of based on where he asks you to sit, you kind of know what's about to happen, right? So like, if you get to sit on the couch, we're having a fun conversation. If you get to sit in the desk across from him, he's about to let you know about something, you know?
Yeah, it's game time. Yeah. It's game time, Bob. Yeah. All right. Bob, we're going to go through a couple things today that are worth talking about. Number one, what makes us different and why you should choose us. But more importantly, what are the things that we know that would make your property sell for top dollar? So let's talk about a few of those. What we've learned over time is that there are 4 things that determine if a property will or will not sell in this market. Number one, how it's priced. And Bob, unfortunately, this is not something that I can control. This is entirely determined by the market. So we'll look at a lot of data today, and we'll talk about it. Number 2, how it shows. And this used to mean, hey, what does a property actually look like when you walk in? Is it staged? Is it clean? Is it repaired? But now, Bob, what happens is that people decide if they want to see your house based on how it shows online. So we need to do a good job in staging your property, taking photographs, creating videos, doing the things that are going to motivate somebody to get out of their chair, get out of their phone or their laptop, and come inside your home, right? Because when people get inside your home, they're going to see how amazing it is, they're going to love it, and they're probably going to buy it. Make sense?
Yep.
So number 3 is the one thing that I control 100%, Bob, and it's how it's marketed. And I believe that is something you're going to sit back and you say, whoa, I didn't know anybody did that much for marketing. And it's very thorough. But if there's ever script, anything that another agent has said that they would do that for some reason I forgot to mention, please bring it up. So let's dissect that for a second. If there's ever anything that another agent has said that they would do that for some reason I forgot to mention, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. And that could be like, well, the other agent talked about a broker tour, or they're going to put it in one of those crappy magazines that are in the airplane. You know, they talk about these, whatever it is. So I always invite that conversation to tell me, well, where do you think your home would be best marketed? Where do you think buyers for your home are going to come from? And number 4, Bob, is communication. And have you ever listed your home with anybody else in the past?
Well, we've sold a home before, not this house, but yeah.
Yeah. When I meet with sellers, the number one thing I hear is an agent comes, they get some paperwork, they put the sign in the yard, and they don't hear from them again. And when that happens, it hurts both of us, because I can't tell you what's going on, you can't know what's going on, and we can't make adjustments to help you get your property sold for the most dollars. So we're going to communicate a lot. And we'll walk through and talk about some of those examples. So let's start with pricing, Bob, since this is the thing that we truly do not control. When we're done and we feel like we like to commit to each other, we're going to sit down with some data. We're going to figure out the right price for your property. But before we get started, did you guys have a price in mind?
Yeah. Yep.
What were you thinking?
Yep. 675.
675. Did you base that on any recent transactions in the area?
Well, no, we just need to get that.
You just need to get that. Okay, great. Just out of curiosity, what makes 675 an important number to you?
That makes sure that we, aren't upside down or have to come to the table with money.
That's interesting. You must have a mortgage then?
Yes.
What is your mortgage currently?
580.
580. When you are going to sell, what are you going to do with those extra proceeds?
We're going to use them to go to the next place.
Use them as a down payment.
Yeah.
And how much
Hopefully
do you
cover our closing costs?
Yeah. Okay, great. And how much do you think you're going to need for a down payment on your next place?
Well, just our closing cost. I think we're doing an FHA loan, 3.5%. We're downsizing, so it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000.
Get it? I get it. So when he's giving me these things, I'm filling out any of the blanks that are on my seller lead sheet. And I come in prepared knowing that I have all these things done, but I got all these different blanks that I want to know. And I know that when I have every question answered, it's a done deal. So I'm going to ask him in the beginning, Bob, would it be okay during this time if I took some notes if I ask you questions?
Yeah.
And you'll see that all the time in our presentation. I'm always asking, would it be okay if I did that? Okay, back to pricing. Bob, we have a pricing strategy, and it is the most accurate and powerful way to price a property. And we use the same data that banks use, other agents use, appraisers use, right? And that buyers can get access to figure out what's the right starting price, underline that, starting price for your property. And once we get the correct starting price, we'll figure out, did we price it correctly? And we'll know that we did, Bob, because in the first couple weeks, we should have an offer on your property. If we do not have any offers on your property, but we have a lot of showings, our research says that we're 3 to 6% off on asking.
Well, so you don't always price it right the first time, and I don't understand.
Here's what's interesting is all the data we have is based on historical things that have happened. Let me give you a better example. We're going to take 5 actives. Those are the competition, the homes that are currently for sale that are the closest to your property. Size, age, square footage, condition, location, right? Then we're going to take 5 pendings. And we call these the lucky ones because these ones have already gotten an offer on their property. We're going to know what price they started at, what price they reduced to, and what price they were at when they finally got an offer. What we're not going to know is what they actually accepted. Statistically, what it means is if a home goes pending right away, it sells for at or over asking. If a property's been on the market for a long time and does price reductions, it sells for 3 to 5% under asking. Make sense?
Yeah.
And the last thing we're going to look at is sold properties. And that's interesting because that tells us what happened in the past, but markets change really, really quick. And all we can do is look at the data and make adjustments. But I feel pretty confident in the price range that I'm going to propose today. Make sense?
Yeah.
So when we're done today, we're going to sit down, we're going to look at 5 actives, 5 pendings, and 5 solds, and you're going to be able to just say, this is the right price. And it might be $675, it might be more, it might be less, but we'll get to that a little later. Does that seem like a fair plan?
It does. If you guys are writing this down, by the way, just as a quick interjection, anybody that becomes a Brivity Platform member, we give you guys this listing presentation in an editable format that you can go swap the Ben Kinney logo out and add your own logo in there.
This process right here, it used to take me like 30 minutes to do a CMA. I do them now in 3 minutes. We built a tool. All we do is we go and we pick 5 actives, 5 pendings, and 5 solds, and I hit print. That's all you need to do. We never show up at a customer's house with a price. Because when you show up with the price, you're now presenting your opinion, and opinions can be wrong. We always show up with data in a range in my head that I say, hey, I would take a listing in this price range, or I would bail on it. Does that all make sense to you guys? Okay, keep going. Bob, there's a lot of things that can make your property show better. And we'll walk through some things once we agree to work together. Could be some staging or some decluttering or some things that we'll recommend that you repair. But one of the things that we have to do is make sure your property is showcased online. And we have to make sure it's extremely professional. So photography, photo editing, staging and repairs, virtual tours, etc. We can even do some virtual staging for any of the vacant rooms that you have in your house if you would like to showcase it that way. And we're going to ensure that when somebody sees your property, they're going to want to get inside the front door. Now, the third thing is what we're going to spend most of our time on today. It's how a property actually sells. Now, the National Association of Realtors does a study every single year called the Profile of Buyers and Sellers. Anybody, by the way, anybody read that? Right.
It's required reading in our world. Like all of our teams, all of our tech people, we have to understand this. We read it every year. Ben will quiz you on it. I mean, it's really important data that we all need to understand.
So it's the National Association of Realtors Profile Buyers and Sellers. And inside the Profile Buyers and Sellers, there's particularly one section that I care about. And that's how buyers found the actual property that they purchased last year. How did buyers find the actual property that they purchased last year? And what we do, Bob, is we use that data to determine where we market your property. And that's what I'd like to talk about. You'll notice in these guides right here is the words that are written here are the scripts that I want my agents to use on that page. So the worst case scenario, they could just read it to them. We could additionally send it to them and they could just read it. And sometimes that's all we have to do is send them this guide virtually, because I hate the cost of printing. So we'll just email it to them, right? And then just ask them, right, does this seem like a plan that would work for you? A lot of times it just ends up in being a signed agreement. So let's just read the script for a little bit. So we annually review data from NAR's Profile Buyers and Sellers that tells us exactly where buyers found the actual property that they purchased. With that data, we adapt our marketing strategy and resources to match where most buyers are finding properties just like yours, so we can sell it faster for more money. Did that sound pretty close to the way I said it? Yeah? No? Yeah? Somebody? Yes. It should be, because I wrote it. But what I do is I memorize what I'm supposed to say on that page, and then I get my agents to do it. So at the morning scripts and dialogues, we might just have one page, and that's what we role play that day. That make sense? Okay. So Bob, let's jump into marketing. What we know is agents are still an important part of the process. In fact, nearly 30% of all buyers found a property for sale because an agent like me said that you should go see this specific property. Now, when I started in real estate, Bob, you're not going to believe this might have been 60 or 70%. And it's dramatically reduced because of things like the internet, but it's still super important. And it's nearly 1/3 of all sales. So what you have to do is you have to hire a real estate agent that has a marketing plan in place to market your property to other agents. So we'll do things like this. We'll market your property on electronic flyers that we send out to all the agents in our area. It's about 25,000 that we'll deliver that to. We'll hand out paper flyers to the highest and most productive agents in the area. What we found is that 20% of the agents sell 80% of the properties. We'll do virtual tours. We'll do realtor office meetings. And we'll just stand up, communicate with agents, ask them if they have a buyer for the property, ask them what they think. And when you add all that together, all agents in this community are going to know about your property. And that's good because all agents in this community that are good have buyers. And those buyers need a property today. Now, when I'm done with this section, I always pre-close and say, Bob, just out of curiosity, is there anything that another agent has said that they would do when it came into marketing to other agents that for some reason I forgot to mention?
No.
Say broker tours.
Broker tours.
Thank you. So you must have talked to
Open houses, actually, now that I think about it. No.
You must have talked to a traditional agent, because broker tours are traditionally for agents that don't do much, that like cookies, that get crumbs on your floor, right? And they come there because they aren't doing anything. But all the busy agents are showing buyers. So what we don't do those unless it's a required from you. What we do is we put on a 24-hour broker tour where we take videos and virtual tours and we deliver them to the agents, and then we talk to the ones that are interested, so we don't have to get the unmotivated ones out here that want cookies and the gas card. We get the people out there that actually have buyers that are busy. Does that seem like a better plan?
Yeah, my wife actually vacuums all day, so cookies.
Yeah, no cookie crumbs. Yeah. No cookie crumbs. Okay. So the next thing that's important is online advertising. And Bob, almost 50% of all transactions last year came because the buyer first found the property on the internet.
Wow.
First found. Which means you need to hire a real estate professional that has a marketing plan that dominates the internet. And what we've identified is 5 places that every property needs to be marketed in order to get sold in this market. How many?
5.
Right? That does something for me, so I remember that there has to be 5. And I always do it in the same exact order, so I remember it and I deliver it the same way. So the order matters for me. So first thing, let's start with the script. Or we don't need to, I know it. We'll go back to it. Brokerage websites. Our technology allows us to make sure that your property is showcased on all the major brokerages in the area. That would be things like Redfin.com, Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker, Remax, Keller Williams, right? Is there a brokerage website that you use? Yes, we'll be showcased on that as well. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't matter which brokers, we're going to get your property showcased there. Basically what I'm saying is, I'm going to put it on the MLS. But they don't understand that, right? I went out to buy a Kia once. I walked into the Kia dealership and I said, "Hey, show me a Kia." And the guy walks up. He's like, "Here's a Kia. It's a 2018. It's got a 5-year warranty and it's X dollars." I'm like, "That's cool." And I walk out, right? And then I'm driving. There's another Kia dealership. So I walk into the Kia dealership. Hey, show me a car. He walks up. "You're not going to believe this car. You're not going to believe this car." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You never have to pay to repair it." Why? Because it's got a warranty bumper to bumper forever. He's like, "Hey, do you like music?" "Yeah, listen to this," right? And then he goes through all these things. It's the same freaking car, right? But I'm like, I want that one. But real estate agents, we have the same exact problem, right? We don't deliver the message correctly. A salesperson's job is to deliver enthusiasm. Right? And get them excited about where they're going and what they're going to do, and the person that they're working with is that right person. Okay, brokerage websites, we did that. Listing portals. We get your property featured on all the major listing websites out there. Things like Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, Realestate.com. Bob, there's about 500. And you've probably seen some images of them. If you ever met with another agent, they show you the drawing and there's logos and stuff everywhere. It's crazy, right? Here's what I know. It's not enough just to put properties on there. You got to find ways to make yours show up at the top. And we figured it out. And there's lots of ways to do it, but let me give you some examples. Some of them are done by how often you update it. So we have a team that updates them all the time. We change photos, we move it around, we add things to the marketing description, right? So some are updated just because you pay them. So we give them our credit card and make sure that we're showcased, right? And there's lots of little tips and tricks, but what we found is that there's 27 pages of 25 properties per page. The odd that a buyer is going to go to page 27 is pretty slim. So we're going to do the best we can to get our property up at the very top. That's a different way of explaining the same exact drawing that real estate agents show every single person. It just gives more confidence and more enthusiasm. Number 3, search engines. Bob, do you use any search engines today?
I do, yeah, Google.
Google, awesome.
Are there others? I'm sorry.
There's not many left, unfortunately. So what we do is we allow our websites and our properties to be showcased when people type in phrases to the search engines that might indicate that they would want to buy a property like yours. So out of curiosity, if you put a buyer hat on right now and you were to go to Google and you were to type in a phrase, what do you think somebody would type in to find a home like yours?
Townhome in Kenmore.
Townhome in Kenmore. What if somebody typed in townhome in Kenmore and then it went to a page where your property was, and you were one of the top ones?
I mean, that sounds fantastic.
Has any other agent ever proposed that strategy?
No.
That's weird. That's weird, because that's what we do. That's what we do. Cool, huh?
Yeah.
And we're going to think of hundreds of other phrases that people would type in if they're looking to buy a property like yours. And some of those we direct right to our website. Some of those we direct right to your properties, your specific property. Sometimes we direct into a list of properties with yours included. Now, number 4 is classified services. Those would be things like Craigslist, Oodle, those types. And
isn't that where they sell, like people sell secondhand stuff? I don't know that I want my house on there. Like, why would my house go on there?
Yeah, can I tell you why?
Yeah, please.
So, do you think there's a chance that there could be an international buyer that looks at your property?
Oh, yeah.
Have you been reading the news about all the people from Asia and different places that are buying properties in our area?
A lot of tech stuff going on in Seattle. Yep.
What you don't know is a lot of countries, they don't have MLSs. And they don't have big listing portals. What they have is they have classified services. And because that, foreign buyers tend to search on places like that, because if you go and you go to Craigslist, you'll see there's a Craigslist for every country.
Okay.
Right? And what I'll tell you a true story. We marketed a property on Craigslist, $2 million. A guy flew in, got to the airport, took a helicopter to the property, looked at it for an hour, wrote an offer, closed on it, and he hasn't been back. I'm pretty sure it's drug money, but he still bought the property. Still bought the property, right?
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to turn over every stone, right, and make sure that your property is showcased where everybody is. Now, the average agent probably is not going to do that at all. The above average agent is going to do it once or twice. We're going to post your property on Craigslist every 48 hours from the day we list until the day we sell. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. And last is social media. Do you use any social sites? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Tinder, Farmers Only?
My kids, yep.
What's that?
Farmers Only.
Farmers Tan Only? Yeah. Facebook,
yeah.
LinkedIn, Twitter,
Sure.
YouTube. Those are all major places, and they're becoming marketplaces. So we market your property on Facebook accounts, Facebook pages, Facebook ads, Twitter, LinkedIn. We make sure that your property is showcased everywhere, and we give you a lot of tools for you to market your property as well. And I like to play a game with my sellers where we race each other to get these properties sold, and we do that by giving you tools to market your property on your social accounts, to email to people that are in your database, to post up a flyer that's at your office. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And let me just show you a couple of examples of some of the things that we do. Here's some of the brokerage websites that we showcase properties on. Here's some of the major portals that probably, these 3 alone probably get 80% of all the traffic. Example of some of our paid advertising and search engine optimization that we do to make sure that buyers find properties and find our websites online. Classified services, some of the options that we can market properties and classified. And a big one that's picking up right now that many people don't think of is the Facebook Marketplace. And they're just started allowing real estate ads to be posted, and we're getting a lot of great traction from that. And of course, all the different social sites. And if you want to see any more specific examples, we're happy to log in and show you at a later time. So now we're at this point right here. Then I do my pre-close. Bob, do you think that this online strategy would be something that would get your property in front of a lot of buyers?
Yeah, I mean, this is way more than anybody else's.
That's what we hear actually all the time. But just out of curiosity, has anybody said that they would do anything else that for some reason I forgot to mention?
There was one guy that I think, my wife always grabs those Homes and Land magazines when we leave the the grocery store. So there was one guy that was going to do a real big, nice homes and land spread.
Yeah, but that wasn't online, right?
No.
So let's talk about some of those things as we go forward.
Okay.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because traditional marketing is still important. Right now, roughly about 20% of all buyers came from some form of traditional marketing. Those are things like for sale signs, open houses, networking, and like you said, print advertising. Yard signs, approximately 10% of buyers found the property they actually purchased from an on-site advertising, like a sign or a flyer. But the average agent uses a single sign, probably with a phone number they don't respond to, right? And we're going to show you a different approach. Open houses, about 5% of all buyers found their property through an open house. Networking. We probably already know somebody that would like to live in this neighborhood. That's what we do. We're neighborhood experts. So there's a good chance that either you or me, we're going to know somebody. So we're going to work on that existing database. And number 4, print advertising. And here's the interesting thing, Bob. I know that agent talked to you about the Homes and Land magazine. Only 1% of buyers found the actual property that they purchased through print advertising. And most of those bought a builder new construction home because they did the really, really big ads, right? The 3 pages in the paper. What I find interesting about that is that most agents spent 80% of their marketing budget on something that only resulted in 1% of the sales. Isn't that silly?
Yeah, that's insane.
Isn't that silly? And sometimes I rephrase it and I say, Bob, if I took the Homes and Land magazine, I put it here, and I took the real estate book and I put it here, and I took the Bellingham Herald, and I took all those other, all the things at the teriyaki restaurant that you read, you take all those, it stacks up to the roof. All those combined only sold 1% of homes.
Wow.
Isn't that ridiculous? So we have an approach that focuses on where the 99% of buyers search. And that was something that we adopted in the shift. And we adopted it first simply because I couldn't afford print advertising. So I had to come up with a way to deliver it. So at the end, I never got that objection from that person saying, are you going to put it in the newspaper? Are you going to put it in this magazine? Are you going to do those things? Because if they said that, they were stupid. And I like to make those things happen. So they say, no, that makes sense. I would never do that. Right? Great. So let's go through a couple of examples on how we do this as a twist. So what we found, especially in Seattle, it rains a little bit. Anybody else live in a rainy place? 3 people? Great. Rest of you guys are like Texas and Florida and nice places. Okay. A lot of times, in your hot places, it's too hot to get out of the car. In Seattle, it's too wet to get out of the car. In the Midwest, it's too freaking cold to get out of the car, right? In some cities, you just don't want to get out of the car. It's not safe. So what you do is we created this sign, or this sign that we hang, and it allows somebody to text a keyword in. And when they text that keyword in, Bob, we send them back information about your property and all the properties in the MLS around that sign. And what happens is immediately, me and my agents get a text message with that person's cell phone number. And before we did that, what people would do is they'd sneak up there in the middle of the night. They were wearing black, right? They were hiding out with a little tiny flashlight. They'd grab a flyer and they'd run off. We just stopped putting them out there. Now people have to text, and when they text, I get their phone number. I get their phone number. I'm going to call them until they buy your house or they die. That's the commitment I make, right? And we're going to work it. And what I found is that gets more people inside your home, because what flyers do is flyers create objections. Objections are, I don't know if I can afford it, or I don't know if I have the down payment, or it may not be big enough, or blah, 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 blah. But if I can get them on the phone, we can talk about it. That make sense?
Yeah.
So let's continue. Traditional marketing, open houses. What we have is we have the I do open house script, and we have the I don't do open house script. Which one do you guys want? What's that?
Well, it's both.
You want both. You're so greedy, Chris. You're so greedy. Let's start with the I don't do open house script. Bob, although open houses generate a fair amount of closings, somewhere between 5 and 7%, the vast majority of those are new construction developments, because when people go out there, they can see 1 home, 5 homes, 10 homes, or 30 homes. Sometimes traditional agents do open houses, but the one thing I'm going to have to recommend, that if you decide to do one, and we're willing to test it for a weekend if you want, is you make sure that you lock up any of your valuables, your documents, your jewelry, your firearms, and anything else, because sometimes people use that as an opportunity to steal. So we have an alternative called the 24-hour open house, where we host videos, virtual tours, and we only bring in vetted, pre-approved people that are actually wanting to buy your property, instead of the cookie monsters like your neighbors that just want to come look through your stuff. What would you prefer, an open house or no open house?
I don't want anybody looking through my stuff.
No, we don't want people looking through our underwear drawers. That's creepy. That's creepy. So, here's the open house script. Bob, you're not going to believe this. Even today, after all the things going on in the world, still nearly 7% of all properties sell because of open houses. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to start off by doing an open house right away and see what the traffic is like. And if it turns out to be a great marketing tool, we'll do multiple of them. But if it doesn't drive a lot of people, we'll switch over to a better strategy. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
Now, what we do in our open house is we have an open house registration app on an iPad, and when somebody walks in, we ask every single person to register. And when they register, they're in our database, and we follow up with them. But one of the cool things we do whenever somebody comes in, we ask them a simple question. Bob, is this a home that you could see yourself living in? And if it is, would you be available tonight to write an offer? We just ask them. Is this a home that you could see yourself living in? Well, maybe. Is this would you like to get together today and write an offer? We ask every single person. And some people might say, well, what if they have a home to sell? Well, I said, I've already asked them that. Well, how do you do that? Bob, thanks for coming to my open house today.
Absolutely.
People come to my open house for 1 of 2 reasons. 1, they're thinking about selling and curious what their home is worth. Or 2, they're thinking about buying. Which one are you?
Well, I'm a buyer, but we do have a house to sell. Actually.
You do both. Awesome. Agents don't get listings from open houses because they don't ask them if they have a home to sell. So every single person, as soon as they come in, you ask the question. People come to my open houses for 1 of 2 reasons. 1, they're curious what their home is worth, right? Because they're thinking about selling. Or 2, they're thinking about buying. Which one are you? Right? We don't do the, what brings you in today? Bob's
just
like,
looking.
I can smell the
Get
cookies.
Out of my way, yeah. You have drugs in the counter?
Yeah, I found just looking pays horribly. That make sense? All right. Networking. Let's read the script. Our agents excel at the essential skills of networking, which means we can find you buyers that other agents might miss out on. We host and attend events often to constantly widen our network, and we have a database of existing investors, buyers that are looking for properties like yours. Print advertising. If we hadn't gone through it at this moment, we'll go through there and we'll talk about the stacks, and we'll use the teriyaki restaurant analogy because everybody laughs at that, right? And you just go through that process. In our actual digital listing presentation, I'm going to show you something. Right here, there's a button down there. So if it's going good, we just hit the button, and the button actually skips to the next section. If it's not going good and they want more details, what we do is we just go through it slowly. You'll see that there's buttons for here, each one of these things. So you could actually do the presentation with 5 slides, but if they want more information, you click on it, right, and you go through the more detailed version. Because we don't want to do a really long presentation if we don't have to, but you can kind of feel them out.
Give me that. What is that? So that sounds like, hey, the stuff you see here, this sounds really great, right? Did you want me to go into more detail? And if they're like, no, that sounds great, I trust you, you just skip ahead.
Yeah. Does this seem like a plan that would get your property sold for the most amount of money? Great. Any need to see examples of that?
Okay, so if they're like, yeah, this seems like a great plan, you just go. And if they're like, if there's any uncertainty, you might decide to
But that's also why I do the walk around. I'm trying to see, are they the type of person that would want to talk about that? And when I'm walking around, I'll ask them questions like, what do you think is going to get your property to sell? Where do you think your buyer is going to actually come from, right? What's most important to you when you pick an agent? Using all the bold consultation and bold listing presentation scripts, we use those things while we're walking and on the pre-qual, and it allows us to better formulate and present the right presentation.
Okay.
That was important to me, that we designed a presentation that we could go fast through or we could slow down. Because sometimes if we go too fast, we miss the fact that they wanted details. And I will slow it down as slow as I have to do until I get the deal. Or I will speed it up if I can get it right away. So Bob, the next thing that really makes us stand out is our database. Our database contains thousands of active potential buyers looking for properties right now. And one of the things I'll do is I'll bring an iPad out there or a laptop. iPads are better because you got the data built into it. I don't know why they don't make data in laptops, so they can fit it in my frickin' phone. They can fit it in my laptop, wouldn't you think, right? So I actually bring it out there, and I'll open it up. And I'll log into our Brivity database, and I'll go and say, we currently have, whatever, depending on the area, 10,000, 16,000 people in our database. These are all people that have registered, inquired about a property, texted in for one of our signs, right, registered on our website, that are all potential candidates or referrals for buyers like your property. And I wanted to show you, not just tell you, that we have a big database. Do you see that number? And I might go over in the lead index and I might sort down by the most recent visit, or I might sort down by the price if it was a luxury property. I show all that information, then I challenge them and say, by the way, if you decide to interview any other agents, make sure you have them log in and show you their database of buyers. Right? And that's one of the values of getting all of our stuff in that database and being able to sort and search, etc. Now, Bob, one of the things that really helps us stand out from the competition is our transparency. And we believe it's something that differentiates us as agents. And we have complete transaction transparency. You get 24-hour access, Bob, to our client portal. That shows you all the tasks we have completed, the places your property is being marketed, and the feedback we have gotten on your property. So the way I explain it is, the number one complaint we get from sellers is they don't know what the agent did for the fees they charge. And that's a problem. So what we did is we created a system and a technology that every time me or my staff completes a task, you're automatically notified with an email that says, here are the 17 things that Ben did to get your property sold today. May I show you an example? And then on another tab already loaded on my laptop or my iPad, I log them into like a Brivity transaction page, and I show them all the list of tasks and all the different places it was marketed and all the different showing feedback. Isn't that interesting? And you can log in here 24 hours a day. It's always available for you. Or, by the way, it's just going to get emailed out to you as well. And I can set that up to go out every day or every week. What would you prefer? Right? And that creates confidence. It's the number one thing that a real estate agent that's average fails at, is communication. And that's why they can't get price reductions. That's why they don't get referrals, right? Because they're afraid to have those conversations. So just force it up front. Somebody, I read a book, it's kind of a creepy book. It's called The Art of Cold Reading. And it's a tactic used by fortune tellers and politicians and big public speakers and crooks and people that can read your palm, right? Or people that can tell your fortune and people that say they could talk to the dead, all that kind of creepy stuff. But all it really is, and you'll see Tony Robbins is actually pretty good at that if you study it. All it really is instead of asking questions, you make statements. And you make statements because if people believe that you know a lot about them or a lot about the situation, they build rapport faster. They build rapport faster. So I've used that in our listing presentation to adapt our scripts. And the question that I try not to do would be, Bob, how much did the last real estate agent communicate with you? That would be a question. A statement would be, Bob, I can tell right now that you were a little frustrated with maybe the lack of communication or lack of data and information that would have helped you get your property sold the first time that you had your home on the market.
If they're canceled expired, their head's just bobbing up and down, right? Like,
does that make sense? I could tell right now, Bob, that there's a level of frustration that you wish you would have had more communication and you would have got more information about the market and what was being done to get your property sold. Even more, Bob, I can tell that you were frustrated about the actual amount of buyers that came in your house. Because I'm looking around and your home's beautiful and it's taken well care of and it's clean and all that stuff. And I think you believe that if more buyers would have came in, somebody would have wrote an offer. That's what we're going to do for you. As opposed to asking that question, we make a statement, right? And if we get a miss, it's called shotgunning. So if Bob's like, no, the agent called me all the time, you just move past it. Interesting, that doesn't happen very often. What were your frustrations? And you just move past it, right? Okay. Remember that we've logged in, we're showing them examples of buyer feedback and agent feedback in the transaction system. We're showing them all the places it's marketed, and we're talking to them about all the marketing updates. But the next thing we do is we talk about what this information is used for. Bob, we know no one likes to be left in the dark. Us either. So we built our own technology that keeps everybody in the transaction process well informed with the most important information from buyers and sellers and other agents. But here's what's interesting. When somebody comes and looks at your property, we're going to reach out to them and we're going to ask a couple of simple questions. Bob, is this a property that you could see yourself living in? Would you like to make an offer? If they say no, we're going to say, well, what would you make an offer at? Is there anything that I could do to get you to make an offer? What is it that you don't like? Well, I don't like the carpet. If I could replace the carpet, would you make an offer? Right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I can do the down payment. Well, what if I could get you a free mortgage? Would you make an offer then? Right? And you use these different things to figure out. Now, the last question is, if you aren't going to buy this property, right, what other properties are you interested in? And why do you like them over this one? And then I'll give that feedback right back to that seller immediately. Because the more feedback you give them, the easier the price reduction conversation is going to be when you have to have it. Right? And you're doing it with data. You remember the other day when I called you about that buyer and they said that they're going to write an offer on their neighbor house instead of yours? And the reason they did is they said because that property had an updated kitchen and yours didn't. I did a little bit of research and figured out what it would cost to get an updated kitchen. And if that property sells for $300,000, right, and you're asking $300,000 right now, it would take you $20,000 to get a new kitchen. So we're going to need to be priced at about $280,000. We're going to have to put it in a new kitchen. What are you willing to do? That make sense? And we just use that data to make adjustments. The next thing.
Wait, did you guys catch that? Like, what are you willing to do? That's really powerful, right? Not like there was no opinion from him. It was just like, here's the facts. Make a decision.
Yeah, because there's only three things that determine value in a property. It's where it's located, right? The condition. And the price. And those are the only things you can change, right? And the seller can change the price, the seller can change the condition, but we can't move the frickin' house. That makes sense? So it's just those two things, actually, right? And that's what determines value. So Bob, our cutting edge tech gets your listing in front of the right buyers. When a buyer visits our website, we can see exactly what they're looking for, and they automatically get emailed new listings that match their searches. We'll know when they view your listing, favorite a home, or request a showing, and we can reach out to them and see if they would like to see the inside, even if they just looked at the property on our website. So you can actually log in and pull up an example of somebody that looked at a property in that price range and show them, see, we already have buyers looking for property like this, and this is the type of person we'd reach out to and offer a showing to. Okay, showing feedback. Whenever an agent shows your listing, we aggressively attempt to reach them so that we can provide you with unfiltered feedback that you'd need to compete in this market. This is the same conversation that we're going to ask the buyer, we're going to ask the agent. Is your buyer going to make an offer? Is there anything we can do to get your buyer to make an offer? What if we offer them a free mortgage? Would that get them motivated? Right? If they're not going to buy this property, what other kind of properties? What price do you think? We just ask a bunch of questions, and we do not filter it. If they say the house stinks, we tell the customer the buyer said the house stinks. Right? We just unfilter it, but we ask permission. Would it be okay if we didn't filter any information we got back from potential buyers or agents and just told you exactly what they said? Great. That wouldn't offend you? Awesome. Then I'm going to be completely transparent. Marketing feedback. We're going to give them what people said. We're going to show them where it's actually marketed. We're going to send them links of it on Zillow and Trulia. We're going to take links of that property on Redfin, on Sotheby's, on your local Windermere, on your John L. Scott, on your Coldwell Banker, whatever the competitors are, because they might use a different brokerage website, and they might get in their head, hey, if I list with Sotheby's, I could sell my luxury home. If I list with Redfin, I could sell my property. If I use this website, I could sell it. I just take that objection away by sending them their property actually on all those sites. That make sense? That removes those other companies' competitive advantage and gives you the power right back. Cool? Great. The other thing that we do is from the day we list your property, we're going to send you market updates. Market updates are going to go out up to you on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis, and they're going to send you a list of everything active, pending, and sold around your property. So you're going to know as soon as I do what's going on in the market, and we can use that information to make adjustments. You can tell that a lot of this presentation was built for during the shift, and very appropriate for today going forward, because you're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to start getting good at price reductions. Yesterday with Gary, I said one of our jobs is to cash the paychecks that are already in our pocket, and we cash those paychecks, right? And those paychecks are listings, and listings unsold are expenses. In the shifting market, your number one expense, if you're a top producing agent or team, is going to be listings unsold. Because you put all that time, staff, energy, marketing, signs, block boxes, right? And it can actually ruin or kill your business if you don't watch that. So we want to make sure that we're aggressive about pushing through and getting these checks cashed. Bob, we went through a lot of information today. Does this seem like a plan that would get your property sold for the most amount of money?
Yeah, I mean, nobody else has come close to this.
Nobody else.
Yeah.
Then the only thing we have to do today, Bob, is we just need to choose the price, review the 555 that we did, just do a couple pages of the easy out agreement. We need to choose our start date when we want buyers to get in here, and then my team takes over. It's going to be like the easy button. Does that work? Great.
Love the easy button.
Yeah, let's start with this, right? We don't ask at the end, what do you want to do? We just assume, because we've asked the entire time, that we're the person they're going to hire.
Well, I've got another agent that was going to stop by here tomorrow morning for the second one. Then there's another guy that said he might make it out tomorrow night.
I completely understand, Bob. And here's what I'd like to do. Since I spent a lot of time and energy into explaining our marketing plan, and since you said that this is the most in-depth and complete marketing plan that you've ever heard, let's do those agents a favor. Let's make sure that they don't take all that time away from their family and their children and their business, right? Preparing for this presentation, and stop you and your family from having to sit through 2 more of these. Let me give them a call. I'll let them know that they decided to list with me, and that if they have a buyer, they can bring a buyer and get paid a full 3% commission. And what happens is they're going to actually make more than me. They're going to be happy because they don't have to do all the marketing, all the work, all those sort of things. And if they actually have a buyer, they'll be able to bring it. Would that be okay if I reached out and saved them the time and saved you some?
I'd actually appreciate that. I'm not big on confrontation, so yeah, that would be great.
People do the next appointment because you don't offer to cancel it for them, right? The first time I did that, the guy said, really? Absolutely, I do it all the time. Called the agent up. Hey, I just got done at John's house, 1234 Main Street, and he decided to list his property with me, and he said that he would really appreciate it if you could bring a buyer, and I'm going to be sending you over the details tonight in the virtual tour, and I hope I get to meet you sometime. The guy's like, thanks! That makes sense? One of the things that we'll do is I'll say, Bob, I'm going to put a lot of time and energy into this research and to figuring out the right plan to sell your property. I'm going to take time away from my family. I'm going to take time away from my business and time away from my life because I truly want to do a good job. I need you to make me one promise, that you will not list with anybody else before you sit down and talk to me. Otherwise, I don't want to invest that time and take that time away from the people I love and the things that I love to do. Does that seem like a simple and fair promise that you can make for me? So then when that person makes the promise, they won't cancel that appointment. They'll stick with us. Does that make sense? Okay. What other objections do any of you guys have? Yes, sir. His comment was, I'm happy to go forward today, but I'm not willing to sign an agreement for more than 2 months. Brett, I completely appreciate that. In fact, I hear that often from individuals that don't feel confident about what we're describing, right? So what about a compromise? Is that something you do? Great. What I'd like to do is I'd like you to give me a fair chance to recoup my marketing dollars and sell your property. Because I'm going to put all that money out front with no guarantee of being paid, right? Unless you would like to write me a check up front and just pay for the marketing and my time up front, then I'd be willing. I'll do a one-day listing agreement if you want. But if not, here's an option. Let's do a 6-month or a year agreement. Probably 6 months would be in this market, I'd say. But I'll sign an agreement that says, if I ever don't do what I promised to do, you can fire me. And if you ever don't do what you tell me you're going to do, or if we don't get along, or I don't like you, you don't like me, you can fire me. And I call that the easy out agreement. And that stops us from having to redo paperwork every 6 months. And if we're doing good, we're doing good. And if you want to fire me, you can fire me. Does that seem fair? Isn't it true that basically every seller can fire you, whether you have a listing agreement for 6 months or a year, right? So just take the objection away. Just give it to them. What if I signed an agreement that would allow you to get out at any time? How would that make you feel? But I would just ask you to promise me that you would only do that in the event that I didn't do something that I promised I would do. But the moment you get frustrated or the moment you think that we could do something better, you promise to communicate that with me so we never get to that point. Is that fair? Right? Another objection.
Ben, one of the things that you guys do really well is set people up for you turn on the reticular activator, right? And for referrals. And so at the end of that listing presentation, you guys always kind of say, hey, listen, if we do a good job for you, can you take me through that? Like what you're saying there to get that person thinking about other people that might be in a similar situation as them that they could refer to you?
Yeah, in fact, sitting right back there, that good looking son of a gun, Mike Hicks is right there. Mike, raise your hand. Mike is in a market of like 14 people and does over $2 million in GCI and gets, Mike, what's your percentage of referrals that you get out of every transaction? How many? For every transaction that he does, he gets 0.75 referrals. Every transaction that he does, he gets 0.75 referrals. Which means if you did 10 last year, you would automatically do 17 the next year. Does that make sense? Because he simply uses his promise script. And his promise script is way better than I could do it, but it's a commitment that he makes to them about what he's going to deliver in exchange for a promise back to them, to him, that they will help him find at least one more person that's interested in buying and selling before they sit down at the closing table. And he does such an amazing job of his final close. He says, if we sit down at the closing table and through this entire period, you didn't help us find at least one person that wanted to buy or sell. One of the things that I would like to do is to discuss what we could have done better that would have earned a referral from you, because that probably means that we didn't keep one of our promises. And I know I probably butchered that, Mike, but I did the best that I could.
You know, during that whole time, guys, they're thinking about buying or selling, right? And so he does it so early. It's not at the end, because when they close, if that's when you ask for the referral or get their mind thinking about it, they're now moving in and furniture, and they're not in a position to be at work talking about, yeah, we're listing our house. And they're going, oh, you're listing your house? How's it going? Like, we were thinking about listing our house, right? So you got to turn that reticular activator on early.
So what we do is I wait till I get the agreement signed. I close my blue folder, just a cheap blue folder. I put my hands on it, and I say, can I talk to you about our promise? And we actually have our promise written in the back of our listing presentation book, and I go through Mike's promise. One of the other things that we learned at the end of a listing presentation, to always ask, by the way, since I'm here, do you have any other properties that you need to sell or you would like a valuation on? I did that once. I was walking out of a presentation, and I thought to myself, I should ask that. I'm like touching the doorknob, and I said, just out of curiosity, do you have any other properties that you would like to get a valuation on? We ended up listing 3 or 4 new properties with that person within 24 hours. It's one of the reasons that we love calling canceled expireds for land. Because people that own land own what? Houses, right? What I found is that most people live somewhere. You're not going to believe that, right? So let's talk about some commission scripts. A couple of my favorite commission scripts for handling those, and then we'll go see the vision speech. Bob, ask me, what do I charge?
What do you charge, Ben?
I know that after sitting through this entire presentation and seeing all the different things that we do, you're probably thinking, these guys must charge they must charge a ton.
Feels like it.
No, our commission is simple. We actually only charge 3%. 3%. That's a deal for all the things that we do.
Yeah.
The only thing that we have to figure out is how much we'd like to offer the agent that represents the buyer. And in our market, we see 2.5%, 3%, or 3.5%, depending on how aggressively you want to market to buyers. Which one works for you?
Well, I mean, we want to be aggressive.
So maybe 3.5% we could offer to the agent that represents the buyer? So another way to do it, Bob asked me if I'm willing to. Are you
willing to discount your commission? The last guy came in and said he'd do it at 5%.
No.
Okay.
Okay, ask me that again.
Are you willing to discount your commission? The last guy said he'd do it at 5%.
Before I answer that question, would it be okay if I explained how commissions work?
Yeah, please do.
Well, let's take for a second and pretend that each one of my business cards right here represents 1%. And let's pretend in a standard real estate transaction that there's 6% charge, which you would know that because I'm now holding up 6 cards.
Okay.
The myth with sellers is the agents get paid 6% and they go home at night and they just rub that money around on their body and their beds.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the truth, Bob. What happens is, I love that. Well done, Mikey. Okay, so what we say is it's important to us that we offer a competitive, if not aggressive, commission to agents that represent the buyer. We know that 86% of all transactions will happen because an agent, it will happen with a represented buyer that has an agent. So if we offered 2%, to the buyer's agent, and your neighbor offers 3%, which home do you think the agents are going to show more?
The other one.
Right? So let's pretend right away that 3% gets taken off the table. All 3 of these. That means I'm left with just 3%. 3%, right? What we do is we invest nearly 1% into the marketing and servicing of our listings. Number 2, we work at an international brokerage, one of the largest brokerages in the world, and we can expose your property all over the U.S., Canada, and all over. And they charge a fee to do that. And nearly 1% goes to the brokerage firm for you to be associated with a national and international group. And I know that you would never list with a local company because they don't have the exposure to get buyers that don't already live here. If it only took buyers that lived here, we just put a sign up and high five. right? Because the buyers would drive by it. But we need to find national, international, and non-local people. And 1%, this last one, Bob, this is what I live on. This is what I feed my kids on. This is what I buy them shoes with. And the unfortunate thing is I got to give half of it, just like you, to the IRS. So when the whole thing's said and done, that's what I'm left with. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the agent that said they would do it for 5%. Well, right away, we take these 6 cards again, and we say, hey, one's no longer there, right? So we know that they would never discount what they offer the agent that brings the buyer, so that's there, right? And we know that they work at a brokerage, right? So they're going to have this one. So let me ask you a question. Out of investing into the marketing and servicing of your listing or them feeding their kids, which one do you think they're willing to skimp on?
Okay, yeah.
What I found is it doesn't matter what we charge.
Find out how we're educating your homeowners with our industry-exclusive coverage program.
It doesn't matter what we charge. It matters what you net. At the end of the day, our team is committed, when you're driving away in your U-Haul truck, to that check showing the biggest possible number. That's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ask me if my commissions are negotiable.
Are your commissions negotiable?
Absolutely. We start at 6 and we're willing to go up as high as you want.
It's fantastic.
Right. One final last one from anybody. Did you have one?
The free mortgage? What is the free?
The Keller mortgage. Because they offer the free mortgage. It's a zero-cost mortgage. So what's happening is companies like Zillow and Redfin and those other ones, what they want to do is they want to discount the real estate commission in order to make money on mortgage. Well, what we want to do is we want to give the mortgage away free in order to protect the commission. And it's a tool that we can all use.
It's something Keller Williams is offering to...
Yeah. Thank you guys all for coming today. I hope it was valuable use of your time.
Appreciate you guys.
Swing by the Brivity booth if you want to get a demo.